Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. I am your host for tonight, DBQhams. This is episode 280 for the week of March 5th. It is maybe the beginning of spring in some places, maybe still a lot of winter storms, depending on where you are. Either way, it is approaching tax season, so hopefully you're getting your stuff done. Maybe you're getting a rebate and you're going to be spending it on some gaming purchases. Maybe this is the reason that you're picking up a PlayStation VR or VR2 or a Steam Deck. Or maybe, like the good economist, you are actually not getting a rebate and you are paying it a little bit because why not use your own money during the year? Anyhow. So, joining me tonight is Taomaster99. Tao, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. Hopefully I get a return this year. We'll see.
Feelings crossed. Yep, you never know, right? It ends up working out like I paying on federal or paying on state and get a rebate in the other, and so it kind of comes out in the wash. So, yeah. Yep, which is, not so bad. We can make that work. But we are not here for tax advice. That you have TurboTax and H&R Block and so many other options for you. But tonight we are here to talk about video games, both what we've been playing and also what we have been discussing over the course of this week. Because we got a little bit of news, but we also got an article to discuss in terms of Villan Studios and Knockout City. And maybe I'll keep my voice during the rest of the show. So, Tao, you have not been playing a whole lot new, have you?
No, unfortunately, this week I didn't get I get a chance to jump into anything new. I was actually I wanted to jump in more into the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, but I didn't get a chance to, at the very least. But maybe next week.
That's okay. Well, thank you for buying some time as I took a drink. But I have been playing some Destiny 2 Lightfall. Came out this week. Okay. I was excited for this, right? I have been on the Destiny train since 2014. Played in the beta back on a PlayStation 3. It was Destiny and Madden were the reasons that I moved from one generation to the next. And I have been in and out. The last year here, I've definitely enjoyed the Shadow or the Witch Queen DLC. Game Logic and I played a little bit of that together. That was a lot of fun. Great storytelling. Really set up what is this last year of the 10-year arc of the Traveler story in terms of Destiny. We knew that the darkness was coming. The Witness seems to be their leader. The pyramid ships. All this was kind of building to a head with what was supposed to be Lightfall. Bungie did come out and say that they are going to need one more expansion to kind of wrap up the story, and that's exactly what Lightfall feels like. It feels like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. It feels like Mockingjay Part 1, whatever the two-part Hunger Games finale. It sets up a lot of things in motion. And I have not finished the campaign, but reading and hearing people talk about it, it definitely ends with kind of, the Empire Strikes Back mid. It's the mid of the wrap up here. So it is not really. It's not really wrapping up anything. And I think that is, in terms of gameplay wise, the moment-to-moment stuff still feels really good. I jumped into the story right away and was excited. This feels like a lot of big stuff building in terms of momentum. And now, after learning more about what the Lightfall story is, I've really slowed down on the story. I've actually moved into more of the seasonal content because, the Lightfall story takes you to a new planet, Nomura, or it takes you to Neptune in the city of Nomura, kind of a 80s vaporwave kind of synth skyscraper city you get a new power, a new class, Strand, which gives you kind of a whip or a grappling hook, but in the campaign it feels fun to use because it's kind of boosting your super, so you get to use it more frequently. Once you get out into the world, it the actual, it's just another, it's like a grenade, it's like your super, it's on a cooldown, and so it is not as fluid as what you would expect with kind of a grappling hook aspect where you can kind of swing yourself around. But I found so that's one branch of the story. The Lightfall story takes you that way. The seasonal story, actually, I've been finding really engaging because in the build up to this, what happens is the pyramid ships attack the Traveler. You get a space battle cutscene, and a bunch of the Guardians are destroyed, and ships crash, and Amanda Holliday, who's been around since the beginning in terms of in the shipyard, you see her crash, or at least you see her ship take damage. And so there is another kind of side story here of going to rescue Amanda Holliday and a number of other humans that have been being rounded up on Earth in the EDZ, and you end up playing through a battleground, which is kind of like a strike, right? It's this, kind of multiple stage, and you've got sub mini bosses and a final boss, and so it goes through that. That actually, in terms of story-wise, has been kind of fun. There's been different dialogue each of the times that I've been running it. You get some interaction with Amanda, with Crow, who, if you remember, Crow is the Guardian who was formerly the Prince in Destiny 1, right? Of the Awoken. You had the Queen, Marasav, and her kind of snobbish brother. Way back in the original Destiny kind of art and trailer cutscenes, he was there, cobbled together in the messy history of Destiny 1 being released. And since then, he's had a really interesting story arc in terms of dying, killing. He was the one who killed Cade 6. And, you in the end of Forsaken storyline, you end up killing him. Couple seasons later, he comes back as a Guardian and has had a big redemption arc, and so there's a lot of really interesting story around that. So in terms of Destiny 2 Lightfall, it's okay. I'm not in any real rush because I know it doesn't really conclude anything, and it's not going to be concluded until next year's story. So it's something I can kind of chip away at. I'll see. Last year, after finishing the story, I rarely came back to it. Played a little bit in the summer, and then sat out. Never came back to it all fall. So definitely, in terms of my time with Destiny 2 and Destiny 1, 2022 was a real slow year. So we'll see what it brings. But jumping back in, Bungie still makes good gunplay. It's still enjoyable. It's not necessarily user friendly. It is. There's still systems on systems. There are still multiple. There's a variety of currencies and grindiness, but if you've been playing, there's a lot of rewards, and there's a lot of engagement aspects there. If you're coming back to it to kind of see where the story goes, I think the Witch Queen was a much stronger story arc, at least from what I've been seeing. It's there's a lot more there. So, we'll see where this ends, where this, what they add to it over the course of the couple of seasons, over the course of the year. But for now, it's still solid Destiny 2 gameplay. It's just not this kind of, ultimate conclusion of any type of story that maybe people were, or at least I was hoping for. So they had already said that their conclusion is not until next year. Yeah, right. The conclusion is not really till next year. I think the piece where I'm a little disappointed on the story side is that it doesn't necessarily explain a whole lot more. It sets a lot of players up and puts things in motion, but there's a lot to wrap up potentially next year. And I think the benefit of what Destiny 2 has done over the course of its time is that there's a number of other story arcs and aspects here that even if the Traveler piece kind of wraps up, and there's still lots of potential vectors. One of the things that's been enjoyable kind of coming into it after sitting for 6 months has been the new tower. You have a variety of people in the tower, right? We befriended a Cabal leader over the course of one of the seasons 2 years ago, the Elixni, some of the Fallen, who were once one of the original bad guys, who were, once part of the Traveler's Light, until the Traveler moved on. There's a faction of them that are now on our side, and so they're milling about in the tower as well. And so it's nice to see the tower kind of represent all the different races that have been cobbled together over the course of building a coalition. So rather than just feeling like running from one place to the other to grab your stuff, there's a little more activity in the tower, and that's a nice representation of what's been going on. But in terms of wrapping up this story, no, we knew that there wasn't going to be anything kind of conclusion, any type of conclusion here.
Have they always been doing it like that, where it was just kind of one big story, I guess, update, like every last couple of years or a few years?
Yeah, I think since they've shifted to the seasonal model, that they have done one kind of big story, expansion, and then a number of seasonal pieces. But actually, some of I have not followed, I have followed from a story sense, but I have not played the seasons. Once they went to the season model, it was, I think I purchased the first season or two. It was really kind of grindy in terms of running certain things to feed up one item that you get for your seasonal emblem or whatever, and unlocking other things. And it really fell off of that grind train there. But during the seasons, they've added a number of things in terms of story. And so, the whole Crow Prince redemption arc, it all happened in over the course of a couple seasons, so it wasn't part of a big expansion. So there's been interesting story there to follow on. It's just been, for a casual fan, it's been difficult to keep up on because of the nature of the grindiness of it. So I think the ease of the annual kind of expansions has been, here's a big touch point campaign. Some have been better than others. This one feels kind of in the middle.
And then earlier you mentioned about the new ability, the grapple ability. Did you play? I can't remember if you played Halo Infinite's story at all.
I have not played Halo Infinite story with the grappling hook. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to compare it to see how it kind of compared to each other, but okay. Because I know, you can do it in multiplayer, but there is a cooldown, or not even a cooldown. I think it's like a pickup that you get when you're playing on the different boards.
Yeah, then it's not drastically different than that, right? It's not like Spider-Man's web in terms of being able to just kind of swing from spot to spot.
Yeah. Okay. No, I just wondering.
Yeah. So let's move on. It's been a while since we've had any type of Destiny conversation, probably since last year's Witch Queen with Game Logic. So, but a game that you have played on and off, and that we have talked about, actually, we've played it together. I was in the beta of it, or the alpha of it at one point in time, which is Knockout City. And it announced that it's shutting down later this spring, early summer, right? In May? And there was a real nice feature article that you shared over on GameIndustry.biz, where the head of Valan Studios talks about kind of the struggles with it. So what stuck out to you about this story, and kind of what are some of your thoughts in terms of how it matches up with your experience, not only with Knockout City, but a lot of this talks about kind of the free-to-play model and the challenge of seasonal content and kind of keeping players engaged.
Yeah, I think the one thing was he Oh, there's a few things actually. Well, the first one was how he kind of, he said this is like a mid-price, title that was out there, trying to compete with all these other bigger titles. Obviously, we got all these other Surface games out there. And
launched at 40, right?
yeah, was it 40? Yeah, I think so. Pretty
I
sure.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and how they kind of struggled once they saw, like, once they first released, obviously it was $40, but everything else was kind of either already or about to or had been announced to go to free to play, so they were kind of like, oh, like this is kind of different, and then kind of their struggles there, and then about a year after that, after the release, then that's when they finally went to free to play, or maybe a little under a year, and just kind of seeing like the kind of, I guess, like the economics of things when they did that. Like, they noticed, like, obviously they knew, okay, hey, come school, it's going to drop off a little bit more than likely, obviously, because people are, the kids aren't home like all the time, but I guess they saw like kind of more of a dramatic drop than they actually thought. And then couple that on with the kind of inflation that's going on, just in the world in general, and trying to keep a free-to-play model like that going, even though people are starting to spend less now, obviously. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they kind of, as they're digging through the information, they kind of saw that and were like, oh, you know what, this, we can't just sustain this kind of model. It's not going to happen. So those are the kind of the couple of points that I saw in there. And go ahead. There's something else I wanted to look up in the article real quick.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that stood out to me is when he's talking about the engagement or the commitment to playing, right? The transitory nature of free to play, that it's easy to drop in, it's easy to fall out because you're not committing, right? We've talked about that on this podcast in terms of, once you've purchased a battle pass, you feel some type of kind of commitment to keep going with it. And that's, he talks about it, the microtransaction economy and the free to play. It's a transient group, and it's, as you said, with inflationary, the discretionary spending, it makes it difficult to keep that engagement when there's less spending ability. And so I think that stuck out to me because of the conversations we've had over the last couple of months here with the number of free-to-play games kind of closing down, Rumbleverse, Knockout City, Apex Legends Mobile, a couple others that are in that mix. I think that this is it's a hard game service to jump into, right? To launch, to break. It's a hard market to break into. That if you're not coming in with some already established IP, like Call of Duty did, or the kind of the unending ability to spend and generate content like Epic has, I think that it's a really difficult. You could have a game that, as like Knockout City, you really enjoyed playing this, but the sustainability of it in terms of what that model is for a publisher, for a developer. These Valerian went independent. They ended their contract with EA, who originally published it. To keep this up, I think the same is true with Rumbleverse. Like at some point, what that curve is in terms of player engagement and the ability to continue to generate content and bring in new earnings is a real challenge. And I think this is we knew this was, we've been talking about this challenge as people chased one model after the other, right? We had the service-based game, the Destiny chase from a few years ago. Marvel's Avengers is an example of kind of the struggle here. The conversations around Gotham Knights and how it looked like it might have been a service-based game at one point, and some of those things were pulled out. Even the most recent backlash around Suicide Squad having a battle pass and other pieces, that there's a number of of these hooks into a variety of games, but the sustainability of it, you know, and now those are games that are full price games, and then you throw in, you know, there's not even that kind of upfront revenue that a free to play game is making. That you really have to hook people and sustain people in a free to play game market. So I think that, and when you're not you know, Genshin Impact and coming on both mobile and platforms, when you don't have a big IP, I think that becomes a real challenge. And there's some really enjoyable games that have tried to take a crack at this and have struggled with it.
Yeah, a couple other points too, where he was talking about how they didn't want to go. Obviously, they didn't want to go the loot box route. They wanted just to do, hey, you know, we're going to do microtransactions, but we're just going to do cosmetics. Which I think at the time, I mean, pretty much everybody was kind of starting to already kind of
they moved off kind of the loot box.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, okay, so maybe at the time, yeah, I mean, people were just starting to do it. And then the other thing was they said that they had some strategies to possibly improve retention, but they didn't want to implement it because of the game was already live as a free to play service, but they didn't really expand on like what that was. So I was kind of wondering what they could have done, like where that would have. I guess they said it would affected the metagame structure or player progression. So I wonder like what that was exactly. What were they thinking?
Right, like some type of stat boost for player
maybe.
levels, something. So. Yeah. Which makes sense, right? Somebody's faster or catches the ball at a better accuracy, or the timing window for catching increases. Like I could see a number of places where you could have kind of a character level.
Yeah.
But you're right that totally knocks out the competitiveness of that. That, you know, it would be very difficult, or you'd have to end up kind of fracturing your player base of having a free for all in a competitive space, or, you know, something that levels off everybody, or something that allows for the player level to count.
Yeah, I wonder if it was something like that. Because obviously we're just speculating, but if it was, if they would have to monetize that, I guess they could have put it in the battle pass, which I guess that's still kind of, you know, unfair to most people because they're probably not going to buy the battle pass. So
right? Yeah, I think that
one of the free things, you know. So.
And then why? Right, if it's about player retention, then probably it would be. I would see that there, or you get some in the free tier, but you'd also get others in the, you know, the typical way, especially in some loot games, right? You're going to get a green or a blue item in the free one, but you're going to get a purple or a gold in the paid one.
Yeah, more time or whatever. Yeah. And then it seemed like in the article, like they were saying that Velen themselves dropped EA as a publisher, you know, and then they went independent. So I wonder if that's how I read it, at least. I don't know if that's what it was, or if EA.
That's how I read it as well. I didn't go back to read the original reports, right? I mean, I would think that they probably signed a contract for a number of years, and when that came time to re-up that contract, or, you know, where that was, if, you know, how much of that was one side or the other, who knows?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I was just wondering at that point if that was like, that would probably have been about the year point, I think, when they did that, or just under. If they saw that, you know, things are struggling, I mean, you would have figured they would have wanted, you know, Daddy EA to help them out, but.
Or it could have been EA seeing that they were struggling and saying, no, we're not going to put any more resources into this. You know, you can buy out the end of your contract and try to take a go of it. And right, if they're committed to their product, they feel good about what they created. I could also see that line of reasoning as well.
Yeah. And then the other thing was to, they could have at any time just been like, all right, you know, we're done. You know, we're just shutting down right now. But they did want to go, at least go the whole second year. They say for the fans too, but even for themselves, just to get that, you know, experience with the service. So I thought that was kind of cool too, that they would do something like that. Now, personally, I'm that guy. Once I heard that they're closing down, unfortunately, I haven't really played since then. But I hope, you know, they get enough data that they can, you know, take that into the next game or whatever they're going to do next, and see what happens.
I bet we can coax a game one last time, and before it shut down, one more
Yeah.
dodgeball game out there.
One
But
more,
yeah,
yeah.
right. It's hard to feel committed to something when you know that there's a sunsetting to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's June 6th. That's when it's shutting down. And it did mention that last season. I don't know if that last season started yet or not, but I believe that was all free. The battle pass was going to be free, so I guess that's something for the folks.
That makes sense. Or just a thank you, kind of similar to Crystal Dynamics releasing at the end of their final patch update here at the end of March. All the Avengers skins that have been paid are now going to be free to everybody. So, yeah, kind of that kind of, thank you to the fans type of thing.
Yeah.
All right, Tao, you got another story here. Speaking of games that we've played together on E2KG, Deep Rock Galactic, we played a little bit together at one point in time, but you've got a story here about Ghost Ship Publishing.
Yeah, so they had spun this up, the new, what they call an article, a new initiative here on Rock Paper Shotgun. They had a live stream for their 5th anniversary recently, and they had announced 3 new games that they'll be releasing in the I guess in the future. They didn't really, I don't want to give any specific dates for most of them. So first up is a Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, which is a top-down single-player auto shooter, so kind of in the vein of Vampire Survivor, where it's just kind of just using, you're still kind of doing the same thing you do in the Deep Rock Galactic game, shooting the enemies and mining and stuff like that, but it's top-down and kind of that wave-based, I guess, kind of shooter. The second is a roguelike. Excuse me. I gotta make sure I get these pronunciations right. Magical deck builder. So it's a turn-based fighting using magical dice. So kind of a la Slay the Spire a little bit. I guess they're getting inspired from. So that sounds kind of interesting because I've kind of, since Marvel Snap, I've been getting into those kind of deck building kind of games. And then finally, a Dark Swarm, which is another top-down shooter from Bitfire Games, which you could play. That one you could play 4-player co-op. So another top-down shooter. But,
I like the idea of a top-down Deep Rock game, right? Everything you're doing in Deep Rock Galactic, you could probably do in a isometric or a top-down type of view.
Yeah.
In terms of mining and shooting and resource gathering, that just switching it from first person into a top down, actually, I would check that out.
Yes. Yeah, I think I only played the original one a few more times after we had played it, and it was just this was one of those games that kind of got involved, so you have to get involved in it, and I just didn't have the time at that point. So, but yeah, so those three games that are coming out, and it looks like, I don't know, I've been seeing a lot of people playing Deep Rock Galactic, and it's been kind of coming up more and more as I'm kind of going through forums and just like different Discord servers I'm on. So I mean, it's definitely getting a good following out there. So it's nice to see that they're doing well, and we got more games coming out from them, from the publishing or studio.
Yeah, right. As we're just talking about mid-tier games, this was one that was definitely in that kind of mid-tier and has really developed a following, both in terms of a player base, streaming following. There's a lot there, that procedurally generated space. There's a lot of options when you start going down that route.
Yep.
All right, so it is getting to be spring, and in March there was going to be EA's PGA Golf coming this March. It is the first time that EA has done a PGA Golf since Rory McIlroy's PGA Golf back in 2015, somewhere around there. It is going to have all 4 of the Masters, or all 4 of the majors, including the Masters, which is something that 2K23 doesn't, PGA 23 doesn't. But now we get an announcement that it's being delayed until April, which actually is coming out right in the same week as the Masters, which I think in terms of timing, perfect, right? Like this is the logical time to bring this out. Like, you can have some ad buys during the Masters, get people interested that way. You've got, people paying attention that kind of are only tangentially paying attention to golf, and you're the game that has this course, that has the island hole 17 at Sawgrass, right? Like, this is a nice bit of timing. Hopefully the delay means that what comes out will end up being a little more polished as well.
What was the original date for it?
Like mid-March, so
Mid-March?
It's probably like 2-3 weeks, I think, is what it is.
So not terrible, at least.
No, not huge. Nope.
Yeah.
More, I mean, in some ways, a little bit of polish, probably some good PR to put it out at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I wonder, you could play online, right, on this one, I'm assuming?
Yes, yes, there is. I'm not sure all the different modes, but yeah, there are online modes to it. Yep.
Yeah, I haven't played like a sim golf game in a long time, so it's been
the half brick ones, the PGA 2K ones have online. You can do individual matches, a round with friends. You can get into a league and kind of play a series that way. They even put out some kind of, it was almost like it was like a first to the hole type of thing, battle royale, where it was like almost like Fall Guys, where there were 20 some players all hitting, and the first 10 to the hole, the first 5 to the hole, you kind of made your way through 3 rounds, and then whoever was still there but had the lowest score ended up winning that round. So they've played around with some things in the half brick ones, the 2K ones, over the course of the couple years that it's been out. So we'll see what kind of all the different modes that the EA one comes out with.
Okay, cool. The previous ones have like a story mode type of, I'm assuming, like the other sports games, or do you know?
The EA ones, I honestly have never played Rory McIlroy's, the 2015 one, right? I think the last time that I played a EA golf game was a Tiger Woods one. Back in those times.
Yeah, that's probably the same for me. Yeah.
I'll say EA Golf was the first game that I bought on the Super Nintendo. Bought my Super Nintendo, and I had money for one game, and I bought golf. And so I've enjoyed video game golf for a long time, obviously. So I'm very curious on how this plays out. I got a lot of play out of 2K, the last 2K one. So it'll be interesting to see how their mechanics are, what they use in terms of, is it the Mario Golf 3 click? Do they do something like the golf club and Half Brick does with the stick swing, where you're, it's almost like pitching in MLB The Show, where you're going down and up. It's your backswing and your forward swing. Yeah, so there's a lot of different mechanics that golf games have tried in recent years. So I'm curious to see how approachable this is and how refined EA's version of it is. So speaking of golf, I have been playing a little bit of PGA 2K23. This is the half brick one. This is 2Ks. This is the one with Tiger Woods. And I've been playing it on PlayStation 5. Picked it up last year on sale, probably Black Friday-ish, $35 or so. Never really got a chance, or never really got the investment into it in terms of play. And so cracked it back open now that it's feeling like spring, getting ready for some actual golf and playing some video game golf. As I was saying, I spent a lot of time, number of seasons and a number of rounds and tournaments with the last version, which came out 21, I think. It's been out for a couple years. A friend and I would play online together. The mechanics here are pretty much the same. So, it looks great. It plays great. What I am not sure about yet is is the 2K nature of it. So in the last one, you could unlock different clubs. You could, there was a season pass, which I did at one point in time, that as you level up, you unlock other clubs. Sometimes they're cosmetic, sometimes they add stuff to it. That is all true here, all the more so. Not only are you're unlocking different clubs, now you have different golf balls with different attributes that have to be purchased with your in-game currency and can be used up. You have it is still a great golf game on the course, but there are layers on the back end, and I can see okay, so for somebody who really wants to invest in it, those layers can be valuable. For somebody who just wants to jump in and play some golf, it makes it a little harder to get into, or to know. In my case, I know how to play the game, but now I'm not sure if I'm playing it right. Like, once you start having a character build where your character could be good at driving or good at putting or good out of the rough, and then what are those trade-offs? Like, if I pick one build, what happens? Do I lose? What do I not get, right? And you do this early in your my player career. This, as you start a player, this is how you go through the different tournaments, and you can reset it for some cost, for some in-game currency, and so there are. In theory, it creates some additional depth by having this, but at the same time, it creates multiple other layers that take you away from the actual gameplay on the greens. So I guess I'm still kind of out on it right now. Although as I say that, the season pass is on sale for half price, and it goes for another few more weeks. And chances are I might pick it up just for $5 to have the season pass. But again, a lot of what it unlocks are cosmetic, so it isn't really doing a whole lot. The cosmetic piece is nice because you are kind of tricking out your, I think I ended up buying a couple shirts the last time playing it, just to have that something as, at one point I had a different outfit for each of the 4 rounds in a tournament, right? Like, this is my Thursday outfit. This is my Saturday. I'm a little more casual. Now on Sunday, it's the final round, so I'm a little more serious. So there's some fun stuff to play around with, and it's just a solid game. I mean, I think there have been some sales out there of NBA 2K23 and PGA 2K23. The digital versions of them packaged together for like $35. It's there's a lot of sports content there for that price. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I'm sure I'll be playing some more, and now I can say that during our superlative show, when I said the game I would still be playing in 2023, chances are it's a sports game, and yes, it is.
Nice. They don't get too crazy and give you like a clown wig or anything, do they? For like the cosmetics.
No, I mean, in the last one there were some kind of crazy outfits. I haven't gone far enough into this one. Like, they did have some seasonal stuff where you had, I don't remember if it was a clown wig, but you had some like crazy hats, or like a big giant cowboy hat at one point in time. There were cowboy hat. Yeah, right. Like, there was some fun stuff, like some goofy outfits, some really clashy, cringe kind of shirts and pants. So you could make yourself just a spectacle if you wanted. Which I guess is half the fun, right? It's the same reason in Fortnite why you pick up that crazy costume, because it's just goofy. So no, it's this is a studio, Half Brick, that they were independent. They did the Golf Club 19, and then got bought out by 2K, and have been really creating a solid game. And so this is where this version here still has, last version just had the stick swing, like the down and up. This one has that, but then also has a standard 3-click meter, or some variation of a 3-click meter. So they've kind of added that to make it a little more approachable. I haven't had a chance to play around with the 3-click meter because I really enjoy the mechanics of the swing, and it's not only the straightness of how you swing, but if you swing too fast, you're going to pull it to the left. If you swing too slow, you're going to pull to the right, and so it really it's a game that you got to focus on. It's not just a casual kind of click and go. That anytime where I feel like I'm relaxing suddenly, I'll swing way too slow on the upswing and totally slice it. Or if I get too eager, I'll end up going too fast and pull it into the rough. So I appreciate kind of the zone nature that it creates.
Golf Club was it a Sony exclusive when it came out, or was it?
No, you're thinking Drive Club, which was a Sony exclusive.
Oh, okay. So Golf Club was multi system. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Golf Club was a. Okay. Yep. No, it was, and I think it came to Game Pass at one point in time. So yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool. So as I've been out into the woods, hitting balls out of the rough, you've been wandering the woods around Hogsmeade and the castle. So how's your time in Hogwarts Legacy?
It's a lot of woods games I've been playing. That's the one I've had a chance to play. So yeah, first one up is Hogwarts Legacy. I'm still plugging away. I only had like one day, I think this past weekend, that I was able to jump into it. But I had mentioned before, like it kind of builds up. Like what you do, you kind of get like a basic magic spell. When I was talking about this a couple weeks ago, and then it kind of branches out. So now I have like fire, I have ice now that I just got. I can freeze people. I think you get some kind of lightning one maybe in the future too. Also, I haven't gotten that far yet. I still have a few that I have to unlock. And then you get your broom, so you can go around.
Do you unlock those through the story, or are they side quests, or is it like a crafting piece where you have to learn a certain number of spells?
The major ones, yeah, you do get through the story, just following the story. I think there was a couple that I got that were kind of side one, and there might have been more of an upgraded spell to ones that I already had. I think those were the side ones, but yeah. But mainly through the main story, yeah, the majority of the ones you get. And then like I said, you get your broom, and then I got a customizable room within Hogwarts, so I can just do I can decorate it however I want, which is kind of cool, and you can do that with your character too. You can, I mentioned you change your outfits, and then you can, actually, I don't know if I mentioned this part of it, but when you have to sell stuff constantly in your inventory because you don't have a lot of room. You can't upgrade it. It's not a lot because you do find a lot of stuff throughout the world, so you're always selling stuff, but the actual appearance you can actually still use. So like say, hey, I got just like a regular wizard hat, but I found like a top hat that looks better that I like or something. So I can put on the wizard hat, but I can change the appearance and it doesn't change like the attributes, which is kind of cool. I don't think I've ever seen that in a game. I'm sure games have done it before possibly, but I've never seen that before, so it's kind of nice that they do that. And I got to a point, I think eventually I can like ride beasts and stuff around too, some of the larger ones. But now I'm getting to a point where it almost turns into like an animal or a mob collecting game where I can go around and collect different creatures, and not just like squirrels, and these are like magical creatures that are from Harry Potter. So
do they fill out your bestiary book, and is it part of an assignment then, or?
Yeah, is it literally I got this storyline, so you can pick up these creatures, you bring them back to your room, and then within your own little customizable room, there's a bestiary that they kind of magically appears, and you can put your animals into it, and then you can. If you go around and you're just doing simple stuff with them, like petting them or brushing their hair or whatever, feeding them, you can get material from them, which you can then use to buff your clothing. So that's kind of another layer that they're putting on top of all this. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of cool that they keep adding stuff. And like here, I think I was like 30. They give a little percentage meter in the options menu when you go in there. I think it was like 30. I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe % through the game right now. So I mean, I'm still kind of early into the game. So, and I'm still finding stuff that you can kind of do within this world. So it's kind of nice to keep adding that along with the normal. Hey, you got to find I don't like all these magical pages around the world, so you can kind of do that. So it's kind of like a collection thing, like how you get in like Assassin's Creed, and
Yeah,
GTA,
that's
like
kind of what I was going to ask. Like, how much of it is kind of mainlining through a story, and how much of it is the Ubisoft open world? Here's a bunch of nodes on the map and side quests and things like that.
Yeah, the nice thing is it doesn't clutter your map with that kind of stuff, with the collectible stuff. It's just kind of things that you can do when you have that one reveal magic. Basically, it's kind of like Batman's kind of radar thing in the Arkham games, where you kind of see your environment and stuff. So it kind of just pings out the area for a few seconds. So kind of like that. So you just do that like when you're in different areas.
Assassin's Creed does that. Tomb Raider did that, right?
Okay.
That idea of kind of pinging out. Yep.
Yeah, so you can see stuff. Yeah, so it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't clutter. All you see in your map is like the different locations. Depending on, there's like 3 different maps you can turn to, like a world map, Hogwarts, and then Hogsmeade, which is like the one major town that's in there. And then so you just see those points, and then you see like your storyline points, and that's pretty much it. There's not like a whole bunch of like clutter. Now, when you're actually playing and you're looking on your mini map, then on the mini map that kind of stuff pops up as you're running or flying around, depending on what you're doing. So it's kind of nice that they have that kind of thing. But
do you have unlimited flight once you unlock your broom, or is there any type of gating on that, or
no? Yeah, there's you can fly around anytime you want, and then there's a stamina meter, so you can go fast, but you're gonna go like really fast for like 5 seconds, 10 seconds or something. And then now that's another thing too. You can upgrade your broom, so you can go. I think for right now it's just like speed. I don't know if you can do anything else later on. I mean, you can't like shoot or anything when you're on the broom, so I think it's just like a speed buff that you get every once in a while. So I've done it twice now, I think, and I think there's one more upgrade that I can do, which just, like I said, it just makes the stamina last a little bit longer when you're doing that in speed flight. So, and then on the broom, there's like some, there's like balloons, like hot air balloon kind of things that you can do. There's some, well, those hot air balloons you can do, and those just give you like an XP boost or something when you collect them all. And then there's certain areas where there's a storyline actually where you go through, and there's like races, more of a time attack kind of a race. It's not like you're racing actual people, so it's kind of nice. It's another kind of aspect of it, but it's fun.
A lot of stuff. Sounds like, plenty to keep you in that world.
Yeah, and I don't know. In this game, it doesn't, like I said, I think maybe it's because of the map. Like, it doesn't have everything on there, so it doesn't feel like I have to do it. Like I have to go and pick up all these things or do all these side quests and stuff. Like, it's just kind of, they're there if you kind of go and look for them. So it's kind of nice. It's not just, I know a lot of people have that I don't want to say fear, but that kind of like anxiety, like when they see a map and there's just like like all these icons on there, like they get just overwhelmed. But it's not like that, so it's kind of nice. Yeah, but yeah, so I'm having a lot of fun. I'm pretty much plugging through the main storyline right now. I do a certain side quest here and there, but for the most part, I'm just going through the story. So I'll finish that off hopefully.
Nice.
Soon.
Yeah. Have you heard, is there a lot of kind of end game content to that? Like once you move through the story, is that kind of it, or is there's more stuff to kind of collect and live in that world with?
Actually, I haven't heard if once you beat the story, if it ends or if you can kind of keep going. So it's something I want to try to look into, because I don't want to like finish it and then I'm kind of, well, I do my normal thing now that I always have 3 saves. So 3 save slots, like in every game. I think when I can do that, I pretty much do that. So if I do happen to finish it, I can always like go fall back on there. So, and I think there is an autosave feature too, like when you finish a story or something, or finish a mission.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, you can just go in and save too anytime you want, which is nice. I love when games let you just save anytime you want. So, but yeah, so that was the first game I'm playing, and then. Did you have any other questions?
No, I was just gonna segue into another Force game.
Yeah, another Force game. So a little bit, and once again, I just got a chance to play one day of Sons of the Force a little bit more. And this was actually during the week. I think I played this. Played a little bit a couple days ago, but not too much. I played more. I think it was like Monday or Tuesday, and. The first time I played this was with my one friend I mentioned before. We always play stuff together. But then when I was playing during the week, I played with another group of people from a Discord server, and they were kind of just, I wouldn't say starting out. They had played it a little bit, so we were able to kind of just start to make a camp and do things like that. And just kind of help each other out, because there's some things I didn't know about. There's one thing I learned actually is the backpack that you have, which I saw when I originally started the game. I didn't understand like how to use it. So when you have your backpack and you can like throw it out and it kind of opens up and you have all your stuff there. But then you can also just have like the backpack when it's folded, like just like a normal backpack. You can just kind of plop things, certain things in there, and you like long press one of the buttons, and then it just pops up on your screen, so you don't have to go into that wider, big view of it, because that kind of like shuts the game, down. Basically, your, game stops while you're in that, big menu screen. So here you can just, you're walking through the world and you just pop it out and it's like in front of you while you're still walking. You just pick something and boom, you're going. So it's kind of a quick. Like a hotkey kind of a thing, so it's kind of nice. I learned that, but otherwise, yeah, just kind of going through. I was building builds with them, and then I did play a little bit, like I said, a couple days ago with my friend again. We didn't really do too much because we had another friend that we originally had started with, and we didn't want to get too in front of him and have to go back and redo stuff. So we were like, okay, well, let's kind of stay around the base and kind of build that up, and just we're trying to look for the one. There's one NPC you can actually befriend. And she was like just totally gone. We couldn't find her anyway, so most of the time we're looking around for her. So and then we went into a couple caves. The one, I think the one was like just a small little place that just had some like stuff you can pick up, and the other one was this huge like. We didn't even go all the way in because there's like this enemies that came through, and you get like a little lighter that you can use, but it's not really all that great. And then there's also a torch you can use, but that thing it kind of just illuminates like barely like right in front of you, and that's it. So like literally I was going through, then all of a sudden this dude just like came out of nowhere, like I didn't see him until he was like right on me. So I think eventually you can get a flashlight too, so we'll probably try to get that or make it. I don't know if you find it or make it. Some things you can make, but I think like the weapons, most of the weapons you have to find, and some of the tools, because I know I keep seeing something about like here's a spot for the shovel. It's like I guess the shovel's like a big thing. I guess so. I don't know, but yeah. So I'll still plugging away on that. It's fun, but it's more like that's a game that I even though there's been other like survival games that I've played by myself, this one just seems like and maybe it's because it's early access too. It just seems like it'd be too tough by yourself. Like you'd really have to like fortify your area where you're gonna be. So I'm kind of just waiting for my friends when I play with that one.
Tough in terms of the number of enemies coming at you or the strength of them?
Kind of both. So it seems like as the days go on, like after I was reading somewhere like the 5th or 6th day, in-game days, like the waves of enemies just get more frequent, and they are harder. Like not so much harder, but they throw different enemies that are like more leveled up, basically. And it may just be, maybe that's just the way the game was made. But according to my friend, because he actually played the original The Forest, he said it was nowhere near as bad as the waves of enemies as are in this game. So this is early access, so they're probably just tooling around with the wave generation too and stuff like that. So, and I've seen a lot of complaints online about that. Like it's just too tough. Like sometimes people can't even like get their base like set up in time because the people just keep coming, or the mutants keep coming and coming. So they just can't get a foothold. So it's like I said. Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty. Oh, that's the other thing about the updates. There's actually an update counter in the menu screen where it says, "Hey, in 5 days," or depending on what the date is. So I'm assuming like pretty much every week they probably have some kind of update since it is early access. So I just found it kind of interesting that they have. I've never seen a counter like that before with like, "Hey, it's 5 more days until an update," or 3 more days. So as it counts down, which is kind of funny.
It's a nice piece of communication with your community, then. Yeah.
Yep. So plugging away at that still.
Nice. All right, so for the last game of the evening, Tao, I have a confession to make. I have never finished or played more than a few hours of Metroid Prime. Like, in part, I never had a GameCube. I picked it up on the trilogy on Wii and played around with it a little bit in terms of the motion controls, and actually really enjoyed it there. It is always, it's my rosebud of always struggling but never being able to rediscover. So when Metroid Prime Remastered came out, Shadow dropped last month with the Nintendo Direct, I knew that this was my chance. So, but I waited for the physical copy. So I got a physical copy. I've been playing it. I put it on casual mode because after years of reading about it and hearing the difficulty spikes around the bosses, really what I want to do is explore the world, and uh, and casual mode helps with that, right? Like the generous auto lock on already makes general combat kind of easy. Casual mode, brings the enemy difficulty down a little bit, so it is. I don't feel bad about taking my time scanning everything, really kind of treating it like I'm investigating rather than trying to treat it like a shooter. So it's much more an adventure game, which it always kind of has been, right? I mean, it's Nintendo back in the day, tried to get us all to talk about it as a first person adventure, right? Versus a first person shooter, that this was a different pace. So yeah, it looks great on handheld. I've been playing in. I haven't tried out, the kind of hybrid mode with the a little bit of gyro. I've just been playing in kind of the modern controls and playing it with modern controls with the right stick being camera. Really, not having the 8-way C stick and having a full analog right stick does make a difference. The only other way that I had played this before was with motion controls on the Wii and on the Wii U. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really smooth. Looks great on the OLED Switch. I've played it on. I played it docked, and I hesitate here, right? I hesitate not because it's bad, but because just the reality of the Nintendo Switch, right? It's been 6 years this past week. I always try to play docked. I play it both on the 4K TV and on my 1080p TV. And most of the time I find the convenience of, well, I find that it always looks better on my 1080p. Like I like, the 4K it always looks good, but the colors always seem a little washed out because it's not a 4K machine, right? It's not doing anything like that. So it always looks fine. But when I put it on the challenge there is that my 1080p is a 55-inch. So you blow things up and you start to notice a little more as well, right? Like the benefit of having a little smaller 4K means that some of those, you don't see all those details. When I played Xenoblade 3, it looks nice and bright, but you start to notice the polygons a little bit more. So here it's fine. Really, I think it's more than fine. It's great. It's beautiful. It's bright, and the blacks are dark, but there is, I guess what I'm finding is that I enjoy the handheldness of it, especially the way that I'm playing it, because I'm going at a slower pace. The handheld nature of it feels very personal. It feels very isolated in terms of, it confines the space. And maybe that's just, because I've been able to pick it up and play it in a variety of rooms, which is the nature of portability. But it looks good. It's been a blast to play. So it's one of those where I would definitely kind of chip away at it over time. But it's a great remaster. Really, everything that people have been saying about it in terms of the redone graphics, this is not just an upscaling. We've all played things that have been upscaled, like the remastered edition of things, or name a THQ game that's been remastered for the next generation. It really feels like it's been built to, it's been built and designed for this. So it's beautiful. And again, $40. So yeah, you're a Nintendo guy. Wasn't Metroid Prime ever in your wheelhouse?
Honestly, no. I could never get into any of the Metroid games. Like, you would have thought, like, once it went first person, like, oh yeah, I jump into it. But at that time, I wasn't really doing like first person shooter games. So I don't know. And just the older, I think, and then just the older games kind of just turned me off of the series in general, just because that back and forth going through levels and stuff, it just kind of gets to me sometimes. It's like, why do I got to backtrack and go all this way just to, open a door or do something like that? So, I mean, I've played games like that, sure, but it's just, like every once in a blue moon is like when I play those kind of games. So, unfortunately, I've never gotten to the Prime series, which maybe I'll give it a try at some point, but never been a big deal. So now, you bought the physical version?
Yeah, I bought the physical version. Well, thank you for making me not feel like a gaming isolationist by not having Prime in my portfolio. But yeah, no, I mean, I played Metroid Fusion when it came out, right? Prime and Fusion came out at the same time, had a GBA. I enjoy a 2D Metroidvania, Symphony of the Night. I love that game. Actually, just fired it up this week to play a little bit of it, just to hear the music and kind of run around in it, getting ready for Dead Cells DLC with Castlevania. So, but yeah, it was, in some ways, it was the first personness of it was like, not in any rush. And also, it was a time in my life where I didn't have, the only system I had a PC and I had a Game Boy. So, it made it something of a white whale to hunt after. And this is a nice way to do it on the portability of it. So, yeah,
Sorry, I was just saying they announced Fusion, did they? That's coming out to the system.
Yes, and Fusion is coming to the GBA Online next week. This coming week here. Yep. Yeah. That was. Yeah.
Are you gonna revisit it?
Yeah, I definitely will. I mean, Fusion is fun. Fusion it's not as good as Metroid Zero, because Metroid Zero is just original Metroid. Fusion is really good, but it is very gated. It's actually a great entry point for someone in the Metroid franchise because there's a lot more direction. That it doesn't. One of the knocks against it was that it wasn't. You had a computer kind of telling you where to go and where to go next, and which actually is really helpful if backtracking and running all around trying to figure out where next on the map or where you forgot about. It's nice to have that direction. So Fusion is a very enjoyable game. I'm sure I'll play it. Realistically, I'm more likely to play it on my analog pocket than on the Switch. In some ways just the form factor of it. The save states are still there. I think that's. I continue to kind of pick up my analog pocket on a weekly basis. Try out a few games, play a few things. Yeah. There's just this something. I will admit that it's because of the age that I am. Right, there is something about holding a form factor that feels like an original Game Boy. That there's this tight compactness to it that is different than kind of the stretch of the Switch. Not bad. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a coziness that the analog pocket brings. Yeah. So
this Prime, the Prime Remastered, it has gyro controls.
Yes, it has gyro controls.
Do you use them?
Well, I haven't used them yet. No. Right. And so it does have kind of it has the Wii version of it, more or less, like where you can use your pointer on the screen. It has a hybrid version where it's more or less modern controls, but then it also, your right stick only does certain things, and then you can use the gyro in the Pro controller or the Joy-Cons to do a little more, basically to aim a little bit more that way, almost like in a Splatoon way, right? Which is fine. I think realistically, if we've played enough first-person shooters on a modern console controller, that just playing it with right analog, left analog feels very comfortable, and the fact that there is a lock-on button. It's designed that way, and so it's nice to have the fidelity, but you don't really need it because you can do the lock-on. Like, you get it close and you hit the lock-on button and you're kind of there. And a part of that is what it originally was, right? Where you had the C stick, so you didn't have that fidelity, and the lock-on really was helpful in terms of jumping from enemy to enemy. So it's nice. I think it is It is nice more so for navigation and being able to move in a way that you're familiar and comfortable with. And then as I get into combat, I'm using the lock-on button pretty regularly.
Nice.
So it's very, I mean, it's the most approachable that it has been in the multiple times that I've tried to jump into it. All right. Anything else there, Tao, on Metroid Prime or anything?
No, yeah, I'd be interested to see like how your playthrough goes in the coming weeks.
Let's make it a couple months. Right?
Okay.
Chip away at it. You know, I think there are there's lots of other stuff that is on the horizon and that I want to be playing and make a rotation for. So that gives us lots to talk about, and we will be back next week to talk about all that we've been playing. Maybe some of the existing stuff. We know that there's a patch coming to Sons of the Forest, so we'll find out about that. And any of the news that has struck our fancy during the course of next week. Tao, you're the host for next week, so it'll be good to be back and have that discussion. We might even bring in Swiss to the rotation here in the coming weeks, so that'll be nice as well. So for myself, DBQhams, and for Taomaster99, this has been episode 280 of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. Thanks for joining us. Come back again and feel free. We are glad to join in the conversation with you because that's why we're here. We play because we love it. We talk about it because it's meaningful. So until next time, play the games you love those you play with, and be good to each other. Good night.